Are you gonna need to connect to our? Senator Paul Manglonia, Senator Selena Babata. I am Donald Manglonia, Chair for Fiscal Affairs. All other members are hereby excused. With 3 members present, that constitutes a quorum to proceed with today's committee meeting. Before we proceed, can I get a motion for the adoption of today's agenda? All those in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries. We move on to the next item, which is public comments. If there's anyone from the public that wishes to make their comments, please state your name. All right, looks like there's none. So we now move on to the next item, introduction. Good afternoon again to the members and to the viewing public. Just to start off, I'd like to introduce the staff assisting the committee. We have our legal counsel, Antoinette Villagomez, fiscal analyst, Dave Demapon, Sergeant at Arms, Will Ogden, and IT Del Camacho, as well as our legislative assistant, Devin Macronis. Today we have before us Marianas Visitors Authority. MVA is requesting $12.5 million to cover their personnel costs at $2.3 million, operating expenses at $742,000, marketing expenses at $7.3 million, advertising events at $937,000, destination enhancement at $1,054,000, and the 1% OPA fee. Through the governor's proposal, the governor had proposed to in next fiscal year to provide for the earmark for the hotel occupancy tax, which is projected at $4.5 million, which computes a shortfall of about $9.2 million. And so at this time, may I call on Managing Director as well as any member of your team who will be participating in this discussion to please join us in the chamber. And I'd like to also state that of the hotel occupancy tax that is projected for next fiscal year at $4,584,000, this would further set aside funds that are earmarked through Public Law 2017 and Public Law 18-1, which sets aside $300,000 for each of the each of the districts, Rota, Tinian, and Saipan, for a value at $900,000. $114,000 for the enforcement for the hotel occupancy tax, and $229,000 for destination enhancement, which leaves $3,340,000. And so it looks like MVA has a presentation for the members. And so before we begin, Sarge, did you say will any more be joining your team, Director? Did you email the presentation? Also, can you share the presentation with the members on email? All right. And so with that, I hand over the floor to Director Concepcion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. Day, and thank you very much to this committee for inviting the Marianas Visitors Authority to join you to provide a brief update on the state of the tourism industry and the work that we do here at the MVA today and for our plans for this next fiscal year 2024. For the record, I'm Chris Concepcion, the Managing Director at the MVA. And with us here at the front, here at the table, is our Chairwoman of the Board, Gloria Kavanaugh. To my right is the Deputy Managing Director, Judy Torres. To my far left, Community Projects Manager, Martin Dueñas. And then behind me on my left is Marketing Manager Thomas Kim, our Chief Accountant Mary Munya to my far right. And then right behind me is Carl Chargaleff, our HR Administrative Manager. And that's our team here today, Mr. Chairman. So if the committee allows, we will go ahead and proceed with our presentation. So as many of you guys know, we are an autonomous agency governed by 9-member board of directors, 5 appointed by the governor and 4 elected by our membership. Our acting chairwoman is Ms. Gloria Kavanaugh of the Elan Group of Companies. Here on the screen, you can see the 10 divisions funded by our budget. As always, marketing and promotions of the Marianas comprise our largest percentage of expenditures. Community projects handles our annual signature events and membership. Product development handles destination enhancement. I'll share highlights of these divisions in our brief presentation today. To put my comments in perspective, let's take a quick look at our visitor arrivals historically since 1978 at the birth of our Commonwealth. Our highest arrivals were in 1997 at about 750,000 arrivals. In FY19, right before COVID, we were at about 425,000, dropping to about 215,000 in 2020 and only 5,000 arrivals in FY21. Last year, we rose to 24,000 arrivals. And so far this fiscal year, we're at 126,000 arrivals as of last month, June. So you can see we're making some solid recovery this year, but we still have a long way to go. And overall, arrivals are at 43% of what they were before the pandemic. On this next slide, the FY24 budget requests for Saipan, Tinian, and Rhoda. I do want to note that support for other government agencies on the screen refers to the municipalities' share of the hotel occupancy tax. Prior to the pandemic, the MVA was earmarked under Public Law 18-1 to receive 80% of the hotel occupancy tax collected. During the pandemic, when visitor arrivals tanked, the legislature wisely suspended that earmark to make direct appropriations to keep MVA in operation. For next fiscal year, with visitor arrivals picking up and federal grants given during the pandemic running out, the governor's submission reinstates 18-1. We fully support this decision so that we can continue our mission to lead the rebuilding of a vibrant tourism economy. In addition to this local budget Act funding, we'd like to mention several federal grants that the MVA has. All of these grants are for restricted activities depending on the grant, and all have been encumbered to date. So the last of our ARPA funding is now covering the cost of our representative offices in Korea and Japan. We do have part of the CDBGDR grant administered by NMHC, but this is only for very specific approved marketing programs. For example, none of it can be used to fund non-marketing personnel or destination enhancement or any of the events that we host. We can't fund it using CBDGR. We do have a small TAP grant that we got from OIA to upgrade our data systems. And we are requesting right now to become a co-grantee of an EDA grant from the US Department of Commerce for destination enhancement. So these funds can only be used for very specific activities, and they've been encumbered for these purposes. So for personnel, operations, and most of our marketing efforts at this point, we remain completely reliant on local funding. And one more note on this table in particular, the 1.55 appropriated for us this year to date, we've received from finance only 200,000. The financial situation for next fiscal year is even more dire, as you guys are aware. So on this next slide, a majority of our budget is always allocated for marketing. And I want to highlight just a few of our top marketing initiatives for everybody's just information. We face a number of challenges in Korea and Japan. The currency exchange rate, a big one, is working against us right now. The high value of the dollar is making destinations like the CNMI much less attractive for visitors from these countries. Interest rates in Korea are up. Operating costs like jet fuel are up. And in Japan, there really is still a very valid fear of COVID. And families with children and senior citizens are really cautious about traveling overseas. So, despite these challenges, we want to continue to be strategic in the application of our limited budget. So, as you can see on the screen, we always promote the Marianas as a multi island destination, mentioning specifically Saipan, Tinian, and Rota by name. The rebranding that we made in 2017 to bring the 14 islands of the Marianas under one name, while also highlighting the unique attractions of each of our islands. Some more examples of this from our recent campaigns. We will continue this message under a proposed Korea Media Blitz campaign that we are currently under review with the CBDGDR grant. This is about $793,000 destination ad campaign that focuses on destination awareness and increasing demand in the two of the largest cities in Korea, Seoul and Busan. The next slide, we will have out of home, we call them OHAs. They're out of home ads, digital ads, online and offline media ads like these on your screen, and other promotional events. So, if approved, and we are waiting on CBDGDR to approve this campaign, if approved, it will carry messages like these to the Korea residents through December of next year, with online landing pages for Saipan, Tinian, and Rota specifically. On the next slide, in Korea, we recently supported a fam trip in December for the golf program Swing Star in Saipan. From January through April, the show aired 10 episodes of our golf courses. It's generated an estimated $27 million in ad exposure value for the CNMI. And so you can see why fam trips remain a very strategic investment for the MVA. They provide a very solid return on investment for us. The next slide, turning now to Japan. We continue to carry the multi-island destination emphasis we made before the pandemic with our Marianas 30 Treasures program, Marianagenic, and other campaigns. However, Japan has just started encouraging international travel in May. This is one of the major challenges that we face. COVID restrictions were lifted in May, but as you guys know, many Japanese parents chose not to vaccinate their children, and so therefore, throughout the last 3 years, they really didn't travel much outbound. Japan also has a national travel discount program that gives discount to encourage Japanese to travel domestically. When it started, the discount was 40% on hotel stays and other travel-related activities. It's now at 20% discount. Also, the Japan Association of Travel Agents, JATA, and Japan Tourism Agency launched their first international campaign called Now is the Time to Go Abroad. So, based on these recent media tie-ups, we've successfully gained more exposure and awareness of Tinian, Saipan, Rota by bringing media to all of the three main islands. So this summer, as you can see on the screen, we're collaborating with this popular J-pop girl group, Niju, on a co-op bringing $1.2 million ad exposure value to the Marianas. The group is now streaming an 8-episode YouTube series about their recent vacation in the Marianas. They're very popular. Their debut album 2 years ago reached #1 on Billboard Japan. And so this is really, really excellent publicity for CNMI. Our major campaigns for Japan include the Marianacation program, as you see on the screen, and this will end next month at the end of August. We've also had some tremendous media exposure this year through more fam trips with popular TV shows Tabi Salad and World Summer Resort. Again, this is just to show you guys a little bit of the highlights that some of the work that we do for marketing and promotions. But as I mentioned to the House a few weeks ago during our budget hearing there, other than funding, there really is one main obstacle, if you will, to that kind of it stands in our way of really having a vibrant tourism industry. And it's really the sad state of our tourism destination, our destination product. As you can see on those photos, on one hand, we have a very beautiful, stunning ocean environment, second to none, friendly people, a very multicultural society highlighted by the indigenous Chamorro and the Carolinian cultures. And the tourists really love it. However, on the other hand, we do have derelict buildings in our downtowns and villages. Our scenic sites and public facilities are in need of major repairs. There's lack of public restrooms in some areas, lack of care for preserving trees. That tree, look at how big that tree is, but they just recently trimmed it. Like that's in Aslitu on right by Jotendandan. There's a lack of care for preserving these old trees that take years and years to grow that big. The list goes on. So in summary, our islands are old and run down. We have the biggest, even if we do have the biggest marketing budget in the world, if our product is substandard, nobody's going to buy it. So that's kind of one thing that we're trying to push with our partners, our other agencies and community groups, is so we can collaborate to help improve tourism and improve what the visitors see when they come here to the CNMI. On the next slide, you'll see what our competitors are doing. Clean, attractive downtowns, parks, and attractions incorporating nature, which is already a strength of our islands. A place where visitors feel safe and it's easy to get around and enjoy. We have the Garapan Revitalization Project that's ongoing. And, meanwhile, we continue to work with our area of jurisdiction and funding to help make our more popular tourist sites more attractive, safe, and comfortable for everyone. And that's through our product development or our destination enhancement division. On the next slide, just a quick summary of some of the projects that we have. On Rhoda, our team maintains 16 tourist sites. Other projects in recent years include improvements to the bird sanctuary, the Japanese memorial, and others. This year alone, we're finishing the cleanup from Typhoon Mewar. More projects at the sites listed here include bird sanctuary, swimming hole, as Nevis Ladystone Quarry, and we're working to fix the road with coordination with DPW to the Song Song Village Lookout. And for Rhoda, for next fiscal year, our plans are to repair, to restore the directional signs, replace interpretive signs, repaint and renovate several of the tourist sites, plant more fruit trees throughout the island, and repair the Sabana restroom and restore water access to that site. Then turning to Tinian, we maintain 17 sites in Tinian. Recent years, we've implemented safety and aesthetic improvements at Camera Beach, Suicide Cliff, Taga Beach. We installed a 3D map at the airport, new directional signs, solar lights on the pathway around Taga Beach, and a lot more, as you can see. And so this year, we've also reopened Tinian Swimming Hole, located near Nazareno Beach. We just reopened trails damaged during Typhoon Yutu, the Tachibana Shrine, Kastizu Caves, the Ginoza Trail, pilgrimage, which is a pilgrimage site by the Micronesian Repatriation Association from Okinawa. They visit the site annually in commemoration of the war dead. We granted the Tinian Mayor's Office another extension to complete the Tinian Observation Deck at Carolina's Lookout Point. And I do want to note, Chairman and members of the committee, that this project was first approved by the MVA since FY 2018. So we would love to see the municipality complete this project at this scenic site. Looking to next fiscal year, we will further enhance the new trails and sites we just opened around Long Beach, Masaluk, and Tatong Nature Trail, and also fixing the parking area at Sumiyoshi Shrine. And so for the next slide, for this year in Saipan, we had this fiscal year, we had the Christmas illumination project at Fishing Base, and we lit up our roadways with light sculptures. We completed much needed repairs at Banzai Cliff, as you can see on that screen. There were missing parts of the guardrail that we replaced. And we replaced signs, interpretive signs at last command posts. And we plan to paint the cannons and the tanks there. And we're in the process of revitalizing Bird Island Lookout as well. So for Saipan in FY24, we plan to paint and remove the damaged concrete planter boxes at the Okinawa Memorial in Marpi. In addition, the governor and the MVA has requested that EDA add us on as a co-grantee for the grant that gives us authority to sort of move these destination enhancement projects forward in a timely manner. As we all know, construction is getting very expensive, and so we're very eager to get these projects underway, and we're very grateful for the support from EDA. Another important activity that we have is and that we want to do based on availability of funds are signature events coming up for the next fiscal year. As you guys know, the Taste of the Marianas this year, the 24th annual, it'll be the 25th annual next year. It was a very successful taste, probably the most successful taste in its history. We have the Hell of the Marianas bicycle race in December. We are now working towards inaugurating our first Rhoda Marathon in January 2024. It's easier and much more affordable to pack your running shoes on the plane than a bicycle. So we figured a Rhoda Marathon would be exciting. It's very scenic in Rhoda, and it's going to be the first that we plan. Of course, we have the Tinian Pika Festival and the Saipan Marathon, which we're going to return next year, March 9. So these events are organized to promote and attract visitors. That list there is exhaustive, but there's a lot more stuff that we do. But it adds value to their stay when they're here in the CNMI, and it attracts media attention to our islands. There's also many events organized by other agencies that we support, such as the Rhoda Coconut Festival, the Visita Luta, and I've already met with the mayors of Rhoda and Tinian to schedule and work to promote these events early for maximum traffic. And I will be honest, it's been a challenge. We need the organizers to commit to the dates and times at least 3 months in advance so that we get the information to Korea and Japan and they have time to promote it. We met them, the chair and I were with the governor in the two countries, and they all of them told us that they're very interested to bring visitors to these events in Tinian and Rhoda, but the information coming out is slow. So we're working closely with the mayor's offices to make sure that we kind of speed things up. We do want to bring back Conquer, if possible, as well as Ironman 70.3. We want to be able to host these events, but it really is dependent on whether or not we get adequate funding, right? On the next slide, each of the islands, this is some of the work that we did back then, and we're going to continue into next fiscal year. But we're highlighting each island's appeal that works, like for these outdoor signs in Seoul and Busan. These are from late last year. The biggest challenge for increasing inter-island tourism is really having frequent, reliable, and affordable air service. As an example, Star Marianas, on their website, once that flight is full, you can no longer purchase it online, and visitors are not aware that you can physically go to the airport or call them up to make a reservation. So without these improvements, visitor volume will always remain a little bit low, and the reality is 7 seats per flight at 3 flights a day to Rhoda is very challenging for the market to increase arrivals. But we know there's interest. That's a good thing. These outdoor ads and digital ads in Korea increase traffic on our website by almost 2,000%. But event organizers really need to work closely with our team to commit to the dates much earlier, especially with Tinian and Rhoda events, because we would like them to be more accessible for visitors. We are in active communication with the mayor's offices now, and we're helping them out. We're giving them our best guidance on their events. We're creating layouts to promote their events, even in foreign languages. And so we want to drive traffic there from our source markets of Japan, Korea, and elsewhere. So on the next slide, as I close, in these unfavorable conditions and even in really good economic times, the MVA's budget has always been very low compared to our competing destinations in the region. It forces us to be very strategic with every dollar that we have. For example, Hawaii recently spent over $62 million to market just to the west coast of the US alone. That doesn't even include Japan or their other source markets that they spend money on. For next fiscal year, Guam Visitors Bureau is requesting $27 million from their government. Okinawa, which is part of Japan, but it is seen as a competitor. It is a subtropical destination near us. They have a budget of $143 million. So, all of this in mind, we really do respectfully request your support from the Senate in re-implementing 18-1 to again fund the MVA for fiscal year 24. Right now, our hot projections for next year, as the chairman mentioned, are only about $4 million. So respectfully, there's a very real chance that the MVA will be coming back to the legislature for additional appropriation funding if needed. So we do want to ask for your support and to allow us to do our job, do what we're good at, bringing in visitors, and to continue to build on the momentum we have now in our source markets to recover our economy. And without marketing and promotions, we can literally kiss Korea and Japan goodbye unless we continue our marketing out there. And our competitors are seeing what's happening here. They are very much alive. They're very active. They monitor competitive information that's out there in the industry. And if we want to see arrivals like we had before COVID, it will require a funding level like we had pre-COVID. That's all we have, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. We thank you very much for your partnership and the opportunity to present to you. We ask for your support going forward for fiscal year 24. And we have nothing further this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Concepcion. In regards to your presentation, in regards particularly the outdoor ads, is there like maybe a QR code or a link that maybe can track how many passersby that are actually accessing this information?
Yes, sir. That is actually a requirement that we put for our office in Korea, that they have QR codes especially on the out-of-home ads, the subway ads, the elevator ads, so that we can track it. We don't have the data right now, and actually, that's a program we're waiting on CBDGR approval for us to move forward with it. But the idea of a QR code is going to be a requirement for us.
Okay. Sorry, you're implementing it now, and then you're not implementing it now.
We submitted the request to CBDGDR, and we're waiting on them to give the green light.
Okay, thank you. What was do you recall what the exchange rate was between the yen back pre-COVID versus now?
Pre-COVID, it was about 115 yen to the dollar.
115?
115. Today, it's about 145, 144.
What about the won?
Roughly the same, like 1,100 pre-COVID, and today it's about 1,350, almost 1,400 won per dollar. So it's a significant increase. $50 when we did we had to do some coupon the other day. $50 was 7,000 Japanese yen.
Coupon?
Yeah, those like travel like vouchers that tourists get when they go shopping here or whatever. It's not ongoing anymore, but it just gives you an idea. There was almost a $30 increase in the yen versus us. So.
You also mentioned you've only received 200K from finance for this fiscal year. What have you been using to fund your personnel and operations?
Well, can you repeat the question, sorry?
You mentioned that you only received 200K for this fiscal year. So how have you been funding your current personnel and operations?
It's from the carry forward funds from last fiscal year.
How much was carried over?
1.137.
And that's ARPA funds?
Local funds.
4.137?
1.137.
Now, you said to revisit 18-1. What's your proposal in regards to 18-1? I think you mentioned something about revisiting 18-1. What is MVA's intention to revisit that?
We would like to reinstate it so that we get 80% of the hotel occupancy tax back.
That's separate from the current 80%?
No.
That's earmarked? Or to keep that earmarked?
keep the earmark.
Okay.
Reinstate it really because we're not getting it right now. We're getting zero. It's suspended.
So 4.5 is all that is currently proposed. How do you plan to divvy that up?
Difficult question to answer, but it's a conservative projection. We're hoping that it goes up, right? But I guess overall operational expenses right off the bat, payroll, utilities, rent, is over $1.2 million. Then we have a $1.1 million contract for Japan, a $1.8 million contract for Korea, and then we have our standard operational funds, telecommunications, internet, that are significant. So all of that funding is going to really go towards basic daily operations for the MVA, including our offices in Tinen and Rota.
Okay. Well, if you can, I guess maybe have your staff work on that calculation. If we stuck with that conservative number, how will that look like for next fiscal year? I know we'll get back to that question before we dismiss. I'm looking at your personnel expenditures previously versus now, and if you can just go to that slide. The slide with the expenditure. Yeah. So pre-pandemic, you were averaging about 1.6. And then I understand 2021, 2022. But how did it go from 1.6 to 2.3? When we're talking about pre-pandemic, before all of this went down and whatever you were getting back then, how do we jump from 1.6 to 2.3?
I'm gonna venture to say that figure, the 2.3, is for funding for if in the event that there's actually 42, because we're FTEs. Right now we're at 20 some FTEs, so that figure 2.360 is for 42 FTEs.
And the current base salaries for those 20 some employees, has any of them been increased to what is proposed for next fiscal year?
There was an increase for personnel cost in, I believe, 2021, right? We did WGI was suspended since 2018 or 2019. So in 2021 or 2022, I don't have the exact date, we gave them a WGI and not retro, but for those physical years that was suspended.
But then you are also proposing an additional increase for next fiscal year, correct?
Yes. Again, to fund personnel or FTEs at 42.
Are any of your current personnel currently receiving what is projected for next fiscal year?
No. Yes, in WGI, in 2022 was the last year that we gave WGI to our staff.
So these are regular WGIs. So, for example, one WGI can go up
5%.
as much as
or
$3,000 or whatever that, or like 52,000 to 65,000. One of that being an increase. Because I have here like a marketing manager from 52 currently to 65 next fiscal year.
I think a lot of that also is wishful thinking. We've had difficulties actually filling a lot of the positions at MVA, a lot of the important positions at MVA. In fact, Mr. Kim just got back on board just very recently. And one of the reasons why is because of the competition as far with other government agencies as well as in the private sector to try to get talent into MVA. And so we were hoping that in fiscal year 2024, we would be able to find a champion within the legislature that would help us to change statutorily the salary levels uh, of the positions that are in MVA. Because right now they're capped, and our competitions are other agencies. So we have, for instance, our HR, which we just got back, which I think that she may have taken a pay cut, but she loves Chris so much. Then we have Mary's position, which we have the financial controller, which we've been unable to fill for the past almost year and a half. Mary is in an acting position right now. We have a procurement officer also that we have been unable to fill. There are just multiple very important positions that we are unable to keep staff in or to actually hire because our rates are so low compared to other agencies and again the private sector.
And I get that, and I respect that. But at a time where we're going from a suspended earmark to now reinstating what is intended to go to MVA, you're talking about bringing 40, an addition, more than double your current size, and at the same time increasing them at a time where everyone is being cut off. And my concern is next fiscal year we don't meet the projections, and then you're faced with you know furlough or cuts or stuff like that. um
If I may,
sure,
Chairman.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that is, good about MVA is that we don't hire unless we know that things are getting better. The $12 million that we basically asked for took into consideration basically that we will be near the levels that we were pre-pandemic. And that means that we've either gotten China back or that we've gotten a destination to replace it. Now, China basically brought in another additional 200,000 tourists to the island. If that is an impossibility, or if that projection is not going to come to fruition, we won't be hiring most of the positions that are actually on that budget. We are basically we received $200,000 for fiscal year 2023 budget appropriation. Okay, we are in July right now, almost to August. We are living off basically money that we've saved in the past because we don't go and spend just for the sake of spending, especially when it comes to our own money. And I'm not talking about the trip program, but but that is kind of like what we've always done. And some of the money that we have in reserves that are encumbered and also for our new home, basically that money's been there since the last time that our managing director, Chris Conception, and before him. So it was money that we've accumulated and we encumbered so that one day we will have a home, for instance. So our projections and our budget is basically based upon certain milestones, certain predictions, certain projections. If those don't come in, and we can tell whether or not they're going to come in, then we will not do the hiring. I just the other day, I think Mr. Kim actually was negotiating with Chris because we really need a graphic artist, and he doesn't want to hire unless we really, really need to hire.
Okay. How much in arrears is MBA currently at in regards to your vendors and
We're all current.
okay. So for the current fiscal year, how much is spent right now in totality in the Japan market? in regards to your offshore offices and your partners there in Japan?
The contract is 1.1 funded by CBDGDR. CDBGDR.
And
That's
is
for
that the
Japan.
same for next fiscal year? Will you be allowed to use the same funding to continue to contract with these offices?
Possibly. That funding today expires December 31st of this year. We are requesting an extension from NMHC through HUD or HUD through NMHC to have another 12 months beyond that so that we can stretch it out as much as we can.
And if the request gets denied, then this is
Then
1.1 you're going to need for next fiscal year.
Right.
What about the Korean market?
That's about $1.8 million contract.
Is it also through CBDG?
That's funded through ARPA.
Through ARPA.
Yeah.
And when is that contract ending?
September 30. Right?
And that's already paid for?
Yeah, September 30.
That's already paid for?
Yeah, we're up to date. We still have another couple months and then that should be gone.
Okay.
If I may add to that, basically in all our contracts with our offshore offices, there is a caveat where it says if we that we can cut things for convenience because we don't have the funding. And so, for instance, during COVID, we had them down to even $5,000 per month, where the total amount for the year would be $60,000. So we're able to actually have that flexibility with them that if we don't foresee the projections coming in and we aren't going to be able to pay them, that we actually are able to reduce the scope, in order to meet our obligations.
Thank you. Now, I know this was mentioned in the House, so I just wanted to try to get an understanding and share with the members here. But how many accounts does MVA have currently that you have funds in? Yes.
4.
And what are these accounts? And how much are in these accounts if you have that information?
To a Bank of Guam and to a BOH.
And what are these accounts for?
Payroll.
So how much in total do you have in these accounts currently? Now, what does this 10 million compose of? Reserve is how much? And what is that reserve for?
That reserve account is basically money that we have saved over the many years. In it is for destination enhancement projects. In it is for our building fund. In it was for also joint promotions with airlines. So this is money basically that we've set aside every year when we were under 18-1 and we had additional funds. So we saved this over since 2013. Basically, it is accumulated. Of that 10 million, also that 1.137 was starting, which was basically left over from a few years that we've accumulated. And then the ARPA funding, we did receive $12 million of ARPA funding in the beginning of the fiscal or ending of last fiscal year. The remaining amount is about 4 million something. And of that, we do have encumbered from the last 6 months of the UA contract that will be expiring at the end of August. So that amount is already encumbered. It's in that account, and we will be paying out of that account once we get the billing, which will probably be around end of September, early October.
Do you happen to know if for the current fiscal year, you were allocated 1.5 million, but of that, 744 was set aside from ARPA. Do you know if that money is still available?
We don't. We know that basically it was passed. It passed the legislature, was signed into law. We have not received any of that. The only appropriation that we've received basically was the local funding, which I think was about $644,000, and we received 3 months of it, which would be about $67,000 each month. So that's about a little bit less than $200,000.
Yes, thank you. And in your presentation, you mentioned that for year to date, we've received close to 126 visitors, 126,000. Do you know how much in hot that bring in?
We don't, because we don't receive the hot. So I'm not. Do you have the data? Oh yes, we do.
From Secretary of Finance office, as of June 30th, they have received 2.491260 hot room
Okay.
occupancy tax.
And what are your projections for the rest of the year, and how many visitors will be coming in? Yes.
We're expecting an additional 65,000, which is July, August, September.
So close to 191,000 visitors for the whole year.
Crossing fingers. We're
Okay.
hoping to breach 200.
Do you know what that would compute to in terms of hot? The 191,000?
We can. There is a figure 2.4. How much is that? $3.75 million.
And what's your projection for next fiscal year? Visitors arrival? Is it accurate to say that your projection for next fiscal year and visitors arrival will result in a 4.5 hot collections?
Yes, we're actually. It's a conservative estimate. We're thinking it'll definitely be above that. Maybe 50% or more than 4.5. Hopefully, that's the way that the projections are going. The arrivals are picking up every month.
So currently the 125 year to date, what percentage of that is between the markets, between the different markets?
Korea is roughly 80% of our source market.
And then the 20% is comprised of what?
Comprised of Japan, US, Guam, and all others.
What's Japan? How much does Japan take up?
We've only received 5,000 arrivals from Japan so far this fiscal year.
And then, sorry, what's your estimate for next fiscal year? Did you get that already?
Three 310 for Korea. 310,000 arrivals. Oh,
Are we expecting additional
10,000
flights
from
from
Japan.
Korea?
We're expecting the current schedule to maintain, which is 34 flights a week. That's gonna bring us, and load factors are pretty good now, but we're expecting that to increase, especially during high season.
Okay. And how much
So
are you
310.
projecting for the other markets?
For Japan, we're expecting 10,000, and then for the other markets, make up that roughly another 10,000. So roughly 330, 340.
Okay. I'll you for now to give the other members an opportunity to ask their questions. So at this time, any of the members? Recognize Senator Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, MVA team. I was looking at your personnel proposed personnel increases. Are these what is listed in the budget proposal? The at least for the base salary, are they current? What the current employees are earning?
Mostly no. We have a couple of employees actually that have been capped for how many years now? 10? About 10 years, because our staffing pattern and our levels of salary basically are tied statutorily. And so we are unable to actually give our people a higher wage. For instance, even our managing director earns a lot less than any other director of especially of an autonomous agency. So we were hoping when we did the actual budget that we would put, what is a budget, right? It's a projection, that we would find like I said, a champion that would help us to correct these errors in our staffing or wage levels.
Are these are the employees of MVA civil service classified employees? They're accepted service. They're classified. Accepted service. Yeah. So wouldn't they follow the civil service rules and regulations in terms of? So it's a matter of changing your rules and regulations that would effectuate a change in the salary gaps.
From what we understand, is that it actually is statutory changes that need to happen, that it's not on just the regulatory, but we actually need to change the law that defines it, because we're not even going on.
Do you know what public law that is?
You know what?
The law that created probably established MVA as a quasi autonomous. Okay.
We'll definitely try to get that back to you on that.
I noticed the field office supervisor for Tinian. Is that the correct salary? What is it? 46,000? And Rhoda 36. Those are actual salaries received today for those two positions.
Senator, those are correct figures. And it's worth noting that the Tinian field service supervisor is the most senior employee within MVA, over 30 years of experience.
The entire MVA, including
Yes.
Saipan. I just noticed, because I noticed the discrepancy between Tinian and Rhoda. So aside from his tenure, the Tinian supervisor Why would there be a discrepancy? I just want to understand your staffing salary patterns. They have the same, they manage the same number of employees, which are all trades technicians, and some of them are vacant. There's 2 vacancies in Tinian, 2 vacancies in Rhoda. So why would there be a discrepancy? Is it because of the area that they maintain? One is bigger than the other. What would justify a discrepancy in the salary? And do you have an equivalent in your Saipan office?
Yeah, we'll look into that, but I know that Vita's been there basically the longest. She
Who?
does.
Oh, it's a
it's yeah,
female.
it's yeah.
In Tinian.
In Tinian, yeah. She just as far as and this is not to
Kudos to her.
yeah, I mean she handles a lot, and when it comes to actually even the workload, they work very closely with the mayor's office, and so mayor's office of Tinian over the past several years has been a lot more aggressive. Yes, and so she does handle a lot more when it comes to items like that. There's a lot more events that she would participate in. I mean, but the majority of it, of course, is based on the workload, but also the number of years that she's been there. As far as do we have any such thing here? No.
Saipan doesn't have the prior years. MVB, I believe, had a field operations office
Oh
or
yes,
division,
yes. I
which
remember.
was removed.
So
And
you reclassified that
Yeah.
position to something else.
Yeah.
And that's your prerogative, certainly, if you see the need to um, state the position title. That's your prerogative. You have of course, the sole latitude on that. But I was just pointing out the discrepancy, and even although they both handle 5 personnel, even the titles of the 5 subordinates in Tinian and 5 subordinates in Rhoda are not the same. There's higher positions, although they're vacant, higher positions. At least one of them is a higher grade than the one in Tinian. There are 4 trades technician 1s in Tinian, 1 trades technician 2, while there are 3 trades technician 1s in Rhoda and 2 trades technician 2. So I'm just pointing out the disparities in your staffing, including the salaries.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, of course, it's something that we had discussed prior to COVID, and it's something that we discussed during COVID, and it's something that we are currently trying to do, and that's a desk audit. Over the years, there have been many people in and out of MVA office. At times, sometimes it becomes political even, and we know how that ends up. And so we had tried to get an RFP or do an RFP to actually do a desk audit. I think that it will be helpful to our manager director also, so that he will be able to have people that he actually needs in a particular title doing a particular job. We understand that it's not perfect, but we do know that we need to do a desk audit.
Yeah. Sorry, Senator, if I may interject. I think this trade stack 1 for Rhoda, for example, I think this may have been one of the longest. I think he's the longest one that's currently there that probably hasn't moved up another level. But just in addition to that, David is still acting. Is there a reason why that position hasn't been filled as an actual supervisor?
aware of the reason why it's not being filled, but however, I've spoken to our HR team and we will announce it.
Okay.
So
And while we're still in the discussion of salaries, I'm looking at this, the fringe benefits. Are these accurate? And that one person whose base salary is 21,000, but then their fringe benefits is 20,000, almost close to what the base salary is. Are those figures accurate in a sense? Is there a discrepancy there?
When we were calculating the benefits, usually we put the highest amount for the next fiscal year. This is a vacant position right now that you were referring to. So
Okay.
usually we just estimate that highest.
No, the one I'm referring to is a filled position, like the administrative assistant. Or yeah, sorry, the one I was mentioning earlier is a vacant one, but there's a similar one, the filled position. I just wanted to find out if that's accurate and that if that's okay. And even like so this was prepared prior to Mr. Concession's time, but like the managing director, the fringe benefits was at 5,000 and 31,000 was added on, so something like that. Okay. Can you provide the committee with an accurate listing of currently filled positions? I know you have several that came on board since you got in, Mr. Concession, as well as the appropriate fringe benefits calculation for the new employees that came on board. Senator Boato, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Acting Chair Kavanaugh, for mentioning that you guys would probably be
I
looking
think
into desk.
Are you still acting, Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yeah, I mean, if Hollywood calls, I have to talk my habit.
Okay.
I think a desk audit would go a long way with the disparities and probably, working with some of the titles or positions you guys have. For example, do you need this many trades technician? There's a trades technician 2 in Tinian vacant. Perhaps you can promote within or however way your personnel regulations allow you to promote from within. I also noticed, in your request, you're asking for 7.3 million for marketing. Is that correct? Is that in anticipation of the 4.5 hot tax? And you mentioned earlier that you actually anticipate more than the 4.5. Is that in anticipation of? Is the hot tax strictly going to be used for marketing? Is that what your plans are?
No, I think that includes when we put together the 12 million ask, and so 7.5 million of that would go to marketing. Yeah, I mean, of course, given, like I said before, the current projections, more accurate projections, we would have to scale that back. I think it also included an additional, I don't know how many million, 1.5 million to try to get a new market to replace the China market if we are unable to get China market back to its levels.
Are you currently marketing in China at all?
We are currently not.
How much were you bringing in from the like the ROI on those marketing efforts in China? How much money did you guys lose out?
I mean, basically, China was about anywhere from 48 to 50% of our total collection. Yeah, we spent 2 million, and what is that? We were able to get 7. Well, I mean, that's only for our hut. That doesn't include basically the direct revenues to the businesses that they stayed at, or the option tours, or the restaurants, or so on.
Jumping to current times, how much are you guys realizing from the Korea market in this fiscal year? In terms, the hot was suspended.
Yeah. We're 0.
Sorry about that. Okay, I yield at this time.
Thank you. Sorry, what was your last question?
I was asking how much they realized on the Korean market when we suspended them.
Okay, but they would have realized what 2.4 currently, right? What's our yeah, no, it's just follow up, Senator Paul. What's your how many visitors year to date do we get from China?
Yeah, 1321 year to date for this fiscal year, without direct flights, without marketing. They're coming in through Korea and Japan.
Okay, thank you, Senator Paul. You're now recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so I guess what I'm understanding is the MVA is requesting for 12 million sum for fiscal year 24. And so what I'm hearing is you're requesting for the suspension of the hot earmarking. Well, to continue the language, right? Is suspending it, right? You're asking for the legislature to suspend it. Is that will give you then $4.5 million. And so far, per governor's proposal, that is all that you have, right? That you're going to work with. So with that 4.5, assuming the legislature do not do anything, you're going to fit in your personal costs, which you were discussing with the chairman, the present FTE and proposed maximum FTE, right? And also your operating expenses, your marketing, and all that. So we're trying to fit all of that in the 4.5, right? So we're here to see how you can get the difference of 9.2 million, or how you can cut that difference further down, right?
Are you offering?
No, I'm asking. I mean, I want to know what we're trying to get at, right? So we have a difference of 9.2 million, right? And we know that based on our other hearings, it's going to be impossible, right? Because we have medical referral, we have other CHCC issues, and what have we? But so I guess my question is, maybe after this hearing, give us something that we can meet halfway to offer a solution, right? Because we have to face the fact that we will be challenged in trying to meet this. So maybe we can do one more round and give us what will be your most likely FTE scenario, and what will your most likely situation be for marketing, and maybe that will come out to 8 million some. I don't know, 8 million, right? So okay, so assuming $8 million, then you're trying gonna fit in all your operation expense and personnel costs. Okay, let me ask. Um, so you don't have any more money promised to you through ARPA or other sources that can possibly help. I hear the acting chair before earlier saying you're just surviving based on what money you have left over, right? So that will carry you until for another couple months, or only for this fiscal year, right? At the end of this fiscal year, we don't anticipate any other funding source. Okay, and the reason why you survived last year was because of all these federal aids, right? Funds. Okay. So I guess there's no question that we have to suspend again the uh, the earmarking of funds, uh, which is a total of what, almost $1 million? Yeah, almost $1 million.
You mean unsuspend?
Not to, if we were to to s- suspend it,
Okay,
then we're talking about the $1 million roughly for the earmarking for Rhoda Mayor, Tinia Mayor, Saipan Mayor, Secretary of Finance.
okay. So yeah, I mean that it's up to, I believe, $300,000, something like that. But it is a 2% basically of our collections. So
Okay.
let's say we collect, what is it? What is it? $1 million, and you get
No, but
200,000.
based on what I'm hearing is that you're expecting to collect, you're projecting next fiscal year to collect 4.5.
Yes, and so
So
2% will go to each mayor.
also it
based on
doesn't
the
come
law.
out to 300.
Yeah, it's up to 300, but it's 2%.
Plus 2.5% for revenue tax
Mm,
for enforcement.
okay. So based on this, but based on this, you are projecting 1.2.
Yeah, if it's the $12 million, yes, but if it's not, then it's to the more conservative number.
Oh, what you're
4.5.
saying is if you get a 12 million, your projection would then
Correct.
be
Yes.
realized that
Yes,
so
correct.
many tourists will come and
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, right now we just had our board meeting yesterday, where the management was tasked with coming up with a uh, a contingency plan, one based on appropriations, which we basically will shut down, two based on the conservative amount of the 4.5 million, and try to be a little bit creative with what we have left with CDBGDR, with its restrictions as far as ARPA funding. That will, of the $12 million that we did receive, and after all the encumbrances that we have, I believe we have about $100,000 left of that,
Mm.
which will be exhausted, and we have been using to actually help pay for payroll.
So today you don't have any scenario there now where you're gonna be working with another figure, 8 million or $7 million.
We are currently, management is currently putting that together for the board.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator. To your point, we are, kind of trying. The practice historically has been for us is when the budget is approved by the legislature and signed into law by the governor, whatever that dollar amount is, we go back to the drawing board and live within our means. So to your point on the what are you going to do if you get only 4.5 million, we're going to have to adjust our figures. Correct.
Mm. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I know there'll be a couple rounds. So at this point, I just want to, because the chair was mentioning something about tourists trying to book online to go to Rhoda, right? And or was that you, the director? And they go online and you go on Star Marianas and it's full, right? Okay. Well, first, how do they go? Know that they go to Star Marianas? Do they get directed, or that's on your site, no, on your website and all that? Okay, and most many times they try to connect and they cannot.
Box is like 0 to 7, and then a lot of times it's just 0 seats, so then they
Okay,
can't.
so
Yeah.
so just like you go to Korea and Japan and work with the airlines, may I ask, have you discussed this with Star Marianas?
Yes, we brought it to their attention. We really want to work closely with Star for Tinian and Rhoda because we've generated a lot of interest in travel there, and we brought up the issue with it, and the response was they need to call us or show up at the airport. So that's kind of a dilemma for the tourist that's sitting in Tokyo or Seoul. So they contact our office, and then we see what we could do to assist. So
Well,
until
but
they-
I meant more like how do they add more flights? Because you're putting in millions in marketing and nice signage and all that, and then there's no connection to road. And so I'm just saying, I think the discussion should be to entice them, to give them incentive to add more flights.
You know, when we went there last time with the governor back in early June, we did run across the number one tour agency in Korea, and they were very interested in doing a Rhoda tour because they want to do more adventurous tours, a tour that is different than all the other tours that are sold in Korea for the CNMI. And the best that we can do basically is try to give them the connections, the names of the people that they need to contact for Star Marianas, for instance, for when it comes to hotels, when it comes to option tours. So we were able to do the introduction, and whether or not they are able to come to an agreement where there would be a package that is viable, something that they can sell, is going to be basically up to what is it? The two, yeah, stars and star, and then the tour agent. The tour agent, I do know, did ask us, whether or not there was another option to the airline, because the airline basically was over $200 for a round trip, and that was very cost prohibitive. So um, it's something that we're kind of like trapped because we don't really have a in with increasing the flights.
Well, I bring this also up partly because I talked to Star Marianas and they want to add additional flights to Guam on weekends and sometimes after hours. And I think I did mention this chair that one of the obstacles they see is with regards to CBP and custom. So I mean, I just don't know who in our government has that role. Again, I repeat myself, who has that role? I can take over and do that, but that's not my job really. It's somebody in the administration. That's an executive function. So it's a matter of setting up a meeting with CBP and custom and bringing in Star Marana so that they can address some of these issues. And so I ask again, whose role is that? CPA, when I talked to them, said that's not their job. Their job is to provide an airport and a runway and service whoever comes in. So who in the CNMI government uh, kind of coordinate all of this so that we can have their concern. Their concern, by the way, one of it is the custom officials. The custom people would not service flights on weekends without charging overtime. And they're not saying they don't want to pay overtime, but it's just a lot of hassle to have different rates for weekends and 4:30 after 4:30. And I think our government has to come together and just have one rate, whether weekend or weekdays, and whether after 4:30. So what I'm just saying is even CBP, I I mean, we had to subsidize their daily flight to Rhoda. And I'm just saying that this is this should be in your budget. You should put there a budget for CBP so that we don't have the legislature doesn't have to pay. So whose role is that to budget for that, to meet with them, talk with
You know,
them?
it's a federal agency, and so really, you know, it's the job of our delegate, you know,
Oh
Congressman
no, but I mean
Keeley.
somebody in the executive branch that wants to resolve this
Well,
has
yeah,
to
I mean,
take this up.
and it has to be something that has to be discussed on the national level, because with CBP, basically with the USCIS, they allocate, you know, how many officers per different district, and they're very tight on how many managers.
And I realize that
Yeah.
because even the the um, fiber optic line they
Yeah.
require certain size. But again, my question is not that. I mean, my question is who in our government should handle that? Is it MVA? And if it is MVA, I'm going to ask you: is there anybody in your office? Is it the community project manager? Is it the research manager? Is it marketing? Can you give us a name so I can call that person every day and ask him what's the update on this issue? Or should I go to
You know, I mean, we try to work with CBP, and to be honest, you know, it's not budgeted because it is an issue that all of us need to get on board. There is no one person that you can call and say that is in charge, because nobody actually is in charge of this. This is in charge by a federal agency.
Oh no,
But
but
we
I'm
do, but I do recognize that we have an issue, and it's an issue that we can't skirt around anymore. You know, in order to build up Rhoda, who has basically the you know, the product that is sellable, that
so
people want.
can we assign somebody at MVA so that
I don't
we
have
have
the
a key point that this MVA is going to look at uh, making it easier and
the o-
friendly to
the only time that we have discussions with CBP is when we call or ask for a meeting with CPA. Yes, we don't have a direct line.
But don't you want to promote it and help them, the airlines, so that they can express their problems to you, so that we can help them solve it? I mean,
Oh,
channel it so that we can
yes, yeah. I
coordinate.
mean, of course we do. You know, I mean, I think that, you know, bringing in airlines, it should be the job of not NVA alone, but MVA and CPA, as well as the destination, and as well as you know, your August body here. You know, it's something that we as citizens of the CNMI have to get together and do. But really, when even if you look at our charter or our mission, it's not there. But we do understand, and we do want to help. I know that several years ago, prior to COVID, maybe in 2017, 2016, that there was a $250,000 award that was supposed to be given to Rhoda for just these things, which was for airlines. Okay.
They also,
And that never went anywhere.
this is just one, by the way, one concern that
Yes.
falls, I think, under MVA or CPA, because the other concern is we talk about beautification,
Mhm.
tourist destination enhancement, and you know, there's a beautiful scenic road on Rhoda, and I keep saying this for really several years. You know, the entrance beginning near the Rhoda Coconut Village all the way to Swimming Hole. That's a beautiful scenic road. You've driven there, right? You can actually walk, take your bike, you know, under the shade and go all the way to Swimming Hole. Many people know that, but now sometimes they come from the other side, they drive, and when they're almost near the main road, they have to turn back, and the road is tangan-tangan all over. Whose job do you think that? Whose job? Public Works doesn't care. I think it belongs to Public Work. Uh, the MVA should will try to improve, you know, experience of of our tourists. So, whose job to call DPL, to call Public Works, and to have access to Swimming Hole? Swimming Hole is, by the way, being maintained by your office. So, who do we call? I call DPL, they're aware. I call Public Works, they're aware. I tell MVA, they're aware, but then nobody follows up.
You know,
And
and,
so,
and I think that's not the only area that is an example of this. You know, we brought this up, and we brought this up many times. I think that the Senate tried to address it the beginning of the year with, I think, 23-1 or 23-2. I can't remember which one that was actually presented by the Senate President, that would give MVA a little bit more authority and leeway so that they would be able to go into these areas that are not under our privy. Okay, but unfortunately, as of today, there's no such regulation or rule or law or statute that says that we can do it. And so, whenever we do something, we need to have an MOU, MOA. We need to,
all I'm saying is you guys are spending money. We're giving you money to
promote.
bring tourists, and then
Yes.
all the little things that might be little, but they add up big, nobody's addressing them. 360-degree project in Sabana, for example, right?
We've
We
had
have funding,
we have
it's-
given them many what is it, non-cost, no cost extensions for how many years? I've been in MVA for quite a few years now as part of the board, and we just extended. And
You're
it's the same.
funding that, right?
Huh?
You're funding that.
Yes, we were supposed to be funding that.
So can we have one project manager for what you call here community project manager? Can we have one for Rhoda and follow up on that road, follow up on 360, follow up on flights to Rhoda, and then
Okay,
you guys are helping the mayor promote military travel to Rhoda. Follow that up, follow up maybe pushing CPA, just to push CPA to paint our airport and to remove those black stain, all over the seat roofing, and put up the name of the airport, Benjamin Taisakan Manglonio there, and to allow the tourists to enter from the front main entrance at the airport. When you go to Rhoda, you go through the cargo whatever door, right, where the conveyor belt. And I can understand that if there's damage, but going on 8 years to go through.
Yeah, I mean,
So I'm saying MVA. This is MVA. You're spending money out there to promote, and they come to Rhoda, and they for
If-
8 years.
if I can please request the budget for CPA,
And sometimes this is very easy because
I
the
will
mayor
take
has
care
money.
of this.
The mayor has money, and all this federal grant is just MVA to help coordinate it. Maybe.
I mean, there have been many projects that we have funded for Rhoda. Okay, and it comes from the mayor's office, or it will come from DPW in Rhoda, and we have funded it. We asked them, we pointed out, but like the lookout that you were talking about, we had funding for that, or we have funding set aside for that. It's up to the mayor's office, who requested it, to actually complete the project.
So who's in your office that knocks on their door and say, "Hey, the money's here. Hey, you need to meet with custom. Hey, you need to call Public Works so we can open the road." So we don't pass it around. One person to handle Rhoda issues here at MVA to push this. Can we get that? You don't need to just make that person just handle only Rhoda, but to handle. Can somebody in MVA? My question then to you: can somebody in MVA give a report quarterly at least on the
yeah.
road to swimming hole, on the 360 project, and on custom CBP inter-island airline issues? Give us an update every month or every quarter. Can you assign that to somebody?
We actually had an employee that worked for us for a few months that was in charge of that product development. But right now, for that particular job, our managing director is trying to fill it or spread it to somebody else, because we have a lot of our managers that are actually taking on 2 or 3 positions. But that one position
This doesn't take daily meetings. It's just
no,
somebody
but
just-
it does take a full job,
Yeah.
because we have a lot of different sites and a lot of different products that we try to
Yeah.
develop.
So
But yes,
appreciate it.
we did have, but it, again, we'll look into try to either fill a position or to assign it to
Yeah, I
another
don't think you
person. Yeah.
need to hire another body. It's just somebody just to report on it and to have, you know, and then the other one is like, thank you, you did a tremendous job in helping the mayor do the Burke Sanctuary, for example. But then you go and see the signage. I don't before they were nice. Display of the birds, and you makes you appreciate the wildlife there. But now there's really it's gone, and so we just need to do that. Motsum, for example, beautiful now, but the signage again, you cannot read anymore. How many ladystone sites there, and the history, and all that. So I remember, when people visit that, they appreciate the beauty, but they need to understand the story, the history behind that. So again, I'm just gonna end, Chairman, for now. But I really appreciate just assign somebody to do all this. It's not a lot. It doesn't call for every meeting every day. Every day, just follow up. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paul. Just to add on to Senator Paul's points, and just after what the chair had mentioned, there's so much effort and money spent in trying to bring flights in, and when visitors come into Saipan, at least it's another challenge just to get them to Rota. Has MV had any discussions or even ideas as to providing some kind of subsidy to Star, since they're the only airlines, the same way you did with these Korean markets and Japan markets, so that flights could be cheaper, or they could offer more flights? I mean, has that ever been discussed?
Yes, yes, Senator. Actually, and it's been on discussion pretty recently. Our most recent trips to Korea and Japan, the discussion really focused on how to drive traffic down to Tinen and Rota. And so one inquiry came in from the largest travel agency in Korea about how can we send 100 tourists to Bisita Luta, and it's just physically not possible with seats per flight at 3 flights per day. But we want to start small, and so the discussion went around, okay, how can we make this affordable for people from Korea who have to already pay for a ticket, and Japan to pay for a ticket to come to Saipan, and then pay an additional fare to get to Tinen and Rota. And so we are coming up with different promotional campaigns that will be part of our marketing blitz for that CBD GDR project that we're waiting approval on, to have like monthly co-ops with the agencies to drive traffic specifically down to Tinen and Rota. And part of that blitz campaign involves like not a sweepstakes, but something like they get to view these videos of the islands, and they get to choose which island they want to visit. And then the island that they get to visit, we have a raffle, if you will, and then we'll award free tickets to those people that get to go there. And we're working in concert with our airline partners for that. So yes, we are working to see if we can somehow co-op with that. We can't afford to pay for everybody's ticket, but every little bit counts. So we are going to provide some support.
Thank you. And you said start up small, but even so, like, why can't you start small with the Guam market? I mean, a comment was made yesterday in the previous days that the mayor herself had to fly to Guam to attend this. I don't know if it was a trade show or some kind of expo, but we can even start off with the military market from Guam. I mean, right now we only offer one flight a day to Guam, and so has there been that discussion with Star Marianas because there are 3 flights to Rota, can those additional 2 flights go to Guam? And so I think that's the discussion that should be had. That way, that could also drive the cost down if flights are coming in full from Guam. And so I hope that was on your radar, and if not, now it is. Again, I know when Priscilla was on board, she mentioned having to go to an expo on Guam as well. And so what's the outcome of that? I mean, why has that stopped? Are there more opportunities to promote the Rota or even the Sinamai in Guam? Because right now, from Guam to Rota or Guam to the Sinamai, the cheapest island is Rota versus United, and so that's another market that I hope that MVA can also plan for and prepare for. Uh, how much do you currently have in the building fund?
1.9 million.
And is that where you're taking the money for to pay your current current rental?
No, we're taking that out of operations money.
Have you tapped into that 1.9 for any purpose other than plans for a new building?
In the past, I think it was maybe during 2019 after U2, where we weren't receiving our allotments from the hut. We had to tap into it, but then it was replaced or replenished, paid back by the central government for the hut funds. So that was the only time that we actually touched it. But currently, we have not been able, or we, knock on wood, are not touching it. It's going to be moved to a TCD shortly. And what is that? We are really hopeful that we finally have a place that we are going to call home and that we can start building. So we're not going to touch that. We don't want to touch that.
Okay. Now shifting gears back to the tourist arrivals. What's the average length of stay for Korean visitors?
3 to 4 days.
What about Japan visitors?
Same, Senator.
And is that because if they stayed on Saipan, there's nothing else to do, or is that just their overall vacation period, even as seen in other countries or other jurisdictions?
Yeah, I mean that's typically their pattern.
But if
Especially
there's,
for a
if
short
there's,
for a short haul like us, that is their pattern, whether or not it's here or on Guam. For a short haul, that's typically what they do, 3 to 4 days.
Okay. That's all the clarifying questions I had. Now back to my earlier request at the start of this meeting. Do you have that breakdown as to how, if the 4.5 was the only source that you're currently going to get, how would that be broken down into?
We're gonna have to budget that very properly because, ideally, so $1.2 million is for personnel. Our Japan budget is 1.1, Korea budget is 1.8, and then the difference is really it's just basic operational expenses that we need in for the 3 islands. Which, yeah, that leaves roughly 400,000, and that I don't know what you can do with that with events. So we're gonna have to trim back on all the major events and possibly personnel because that's gonna be the first thing to go.
And how many trade shows are you anticipating in the next fiscal year?
There's standard 2 in Japan, 2 in Korea. And then depending, because we're trying to, this is another thing that we're trying to see if we can tap into the CBDGR money on, is if we can use that funding so that, because otherwise we can't do anything with $400,000.
So your main focus for next fiscal year are just those 2 markets for now?
Yeah.
Nowhere else?
If we get that 4.5 million, yeah. it's yeah, Japan, Korea, and historically China are the big three most reliable short haul markets that bring us the numbers that we need. But without China in the picture, it's going to be very tough.
Any for the second round, members? Recognize Senator Belwalta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the biggest concerns I have with not necessarily just MVA, but other agencies in the government as a whole is the lack of communication between departments. And I brought this up to the executive director. Ever since MVA has been born, MVB prior to that, we've been marketing, and I get it. Tourism is your main um, source of marketing for the Marianas. But if and if Senator Paul's suggestions to talk to CBP and touches into the CPA responsibilities, I'm here to ask you to also be the Department of Commerce and CETA, because MBA has only been marketing tourism, beaches, and now the marketing has shifted to, at least with Korea, that I know of, because the chairman Donald and I traveled to Rhoda with some investors, and they were very interested in developing Rhoda because the marketing has shifted to nature trails or scenic historical sites rather than beaches. Everybody has beaches, beautiful beaches in our region, Micronesia, Hawaii. Um, but I wanted to, in all of MVA's history, they have never marketed investment opportunities here in the CNMI, and that's a possible another possible source of income for the CNMI. And I'd like to, because you've already scheduled trade shows, I think it really should include investment opportunities so that we can. I'm a big proponent for the our covenant. It's no secret, Jones Act waiver. And I think that because you already have plans to do trade shows in Korea and Japan, I think you can put a package together to include the investment opportunities in there, and it would take coordination between MVA, Commerce, CETA. I recently introduced legislation to diversify the economy, just because I know for many years we know that we can't solely rely on tourism as our bread and butter, because it's a fickle and vulnerable industry, as we saw in the last few years. So I would like to recommend that you guys sit down with Commerce, and if it takes, having us, the legislature, bring these departments in because they don't cooperate, or they continued this back and forth with other agencies that we don't have the money, you should pay for it, let us know, and we are more than willing to come in together and bring our minds together to bring more activities aside from tourism to the CNMI. That's all my recommendation is. The other one, I was looking at the legislation that you mentioned with respect to expanding the authority of MVA. I'm trying to find out from the status table where it's at right now. I believe we passed this in the Senate. No, it's a bill 2302 to expand MBA's authority. I'll look it up in the status table. But all of these things that is in this bill, it's a short bill. It's only 2 pages long. Basically tries to It is proposing to have MVA coordinate with mayors, divisions of Parks and Rec, which is something that you guys already do, I think.
Become it becomes sometimes very difficult to actually do. Our legal counsel in the past has recommended that we don't do this, that we do this. And so this way it's kind of like open where we can actually discuss and fund it through us versus trying to give the other departments or agencies the money. So that's where we always run into a problem is that where the funding comes from.
Who's your legal counsel?
Deputy AG. And to add on to that,
I was
Senator,
going to say fire her, but we can't,
to
obviously.
add on to that,
Sorry.
the what the bill essentially, as I understand it, it gives us the authority, because right now, if we wanted to improve any of the tourist sites, we are unauthorized. We cannot go into Bird Island or Grotto or anywhere and put out an RFP for construction to
Mhm.
improve the sites because we don't own it. We have no jurisdiction over it. So I'm assuming that's that bill that we're referring to that gives us some latitude to work, with other agencies, of course, to
Mhm.
get these projects done, because nobody sees these sites the way that we see it. We see it from the tourist perspective, and it's different. So that's the gist of that bill. We're trying to get that kind of.
It says planning,
Mhm.
designing,
Mm.
and proposing projects and programs.
So right now, if we were to, because what we do,
It doesn't say construction. That's what I'm
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
understand.
what we do basically is we do patchwork. But if we want
Mhm.
to like redo, do a major overhaul, let's say on Bird Island, for instance, okay, we cannot do the RFP. The
Mhm.
RFP would have to be done by
By
the other
Public Works
agency.
or Public Lands
Yes,
or
yes.
whoever has jurisdiction. Right?
What is that? And then we don't have any control over what is done.
Okay.
We have to give, it's not billed to us. We actually have to just give the money to the agency. And then everything is out of our hands.
And is that what you wanted with this bill, to have
To-
some
Yes. Control
control
over,
over
yes.
the project development?
That's right. Exactly. Of course. Because we don't want it where, oh yeah, okay, we RFP, it's this, it goes over. So MVA, you have to give us more money. No, we want to actually control, okay, it's our project.
Mhm.
If there's a delay, then we would be able to actually, deal with the delay. If there's or cut back on whatever, if there's something that they run into, like something major. As of now, even when it comes to security at these places, we cannot be billed for it. It will not be our contract. It will be the contract of DNLR, and we have to just supply the money to DNLR.
Yeah, that issue came up just yesterday in a board meeting with the legal counsel. There's a request from some of the industry stakeholders for us to fund security services like MVA used to do
Mhm.
at the MARPI sites. We were shot down by a legal counsel who said that it has to go through DLNR, not us. And so our hands are tied on a lot of these things.
Yeah. It's in the house. I just looked at the status table.
But Senator, if I may, I do want to address the investment side that you were talking about, CNMI, because we have been visiting basically when we go to Japan and to Korea with the governor. We visit a lot of the U.S. embassies
Mhm.
as well as the government agencies. And this last one that we went to in Japan, it was, I believe, right after the in DC there was Invest in USA, kind of, you select USA, and the embassy or the ambassador actually had mentioned, a deputy ambassador, that we would be able to hold such a thing for the CNMI, and that they will help us. We will be able to actually use their facilities to do this. And so, it's our belief that tourism comes first from the investor. So you have to have the investor first. You have to build it, and they will come basically. And so it's very important. I think that one of the big reasons why it's difficult to build back Japan is because we don't have the Japanese investor. Once we have the Japanese investors, then they will basically bring the Japanese in order for the success of their business. So we are wanting to actually do kind of like an investment forum in Japan and in Korea, and we'll do it through the ambassador's office, which they have said that they will help us with. They will get the investors to it. They will help with the uh, providing the facility. We would just have to, pay for the food and stuff like that. But it's an excellent idea, and you're right. We're going to need help to actually put it together. This is not really something that MVA has done in the past, but it's certainly something that Commerce and CETA would be able to help with. But I hope that will come to fruition sooner than later, because that is the one way in order to actually grow tourism is to get the investors here first.
I can coordinate that meeting between you, Commerce, and CETA, because of the bill that I recently introduced is to be marketed, and I've spoken to CETA about it, and I've told them the same thing, that they need to coordinate with MVA and Commerce to promote investment opportunities here. And one of the biggest, I think, attributes we have when it comes to investors from foreign countries is our covenant. So I think in this situation, I would need probably need MVA to be covenant experts and Jones Act experts.
Yeah, which I think we have a couple actually in the house.
But that's all. I really that's I guess the proposal or suggestion I have in order to balance out the, when the market, and we all know tourism has its fluctuations throughout the year, whether it's winter in Japan or Korea. We see an uptick in visitors in tropical areas. So that would balance out and counter the fluctuations throughout the year, I think. Yeah.
I know we had a brief discussion on it, but we would like to meet informally with CETA in particular and Commerce, because like Chair mentioned, when we met with the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo in particular, they even offered to host an event for us at the ambassador's residence. And the U.S. ambassador to Japan is Rahm Emanuel. He's a celebrity, political celebrity in the U.S., and of course in Japan he's very famous. So having that caliber, using that kind of a caliber sort of venue is very prestigious for the CNMI. But we're not the experts in investment, but we would like the assistance of. We can do the coordination and everything on the Japan side. We do have a representative office there, but we'd like
It
CETA
might
to
take a
help.
little while
Yeah.
to come up with some kind of handout or pamphlet to and information on it. Yeah. And I think I can, and this also requires the coordination, I think, to a bigger scale with revenue and tax, because that's a marketable item. Our generous tax structure here, the covenant with the exemption of the Jones Act, our QC. Um, it's very surprising that FSM markets an industry solely in Japan, and they're able to garner over $17 million a year. It's the bill that I introduced recently, captive insurance. Yeah, they've had a little bit more experience with it, but I think if we start now and develop these literature that we can hand out, it starts and people in Japan are now only getting into captive insurance. Um, Korea actually isn't really aware of it, so we need to think of that when we first start marketing this industry. I mean, we've long needed diversification of our industry. And we're trying here in the legislature. But I think if we coordinate,
I think that in the chamber when they had their forum, I think it was in February. It might not be a bad idea to also bring in, like EY or Berger Comer, because I believe that Dave Berger actually had presented, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was that would have been like a tax haven, a legal, tax haven kind of industry that the CNMI would be able to benefit from. So, I mean, that might be another idea that we might want to do. Just talk to these individuals and see what they have, what they know as far as from the tax code
Mhm.
that we might be able to take advantage
Sure.
of. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Senator Balta. Senator Paul.
Thank you. Let me get back to the Japan market a little bit, just to kind of understand what we're looking at in the next year. So we are estimating 10,000 tourists for next fiscal year from Japan. And according to your report here, it looks like until September we're okay with the 3 flights a week, right? That's there for up to September for this year. September 2024.
August 31, 2024. They
Oh, okay,
published that
so we're
schedule
set.
for one more year.
So that's without additional funding concern. The 3 flights daily would be there.
We have a joint marketing promotional agreement with United to make sure that we market that flight so that it hopefully
Okay,
stays
and
full.
that brings you 28,000 seats.
Roughly.
And
20,000.
but we're only expecting 10,000, so there's a potential there if we do marketing, right?
Yeah,
So we can get 20,000 or more.
yeah, we're yeah. A lot of the seats on those flights are filled by local people coming in and out of the
Oh,
CMI.
so actually the 10,000 projection
It's
uh
Japanese.
max out these seats because of the local traffic, or
Yeah, but the
really?
10,000 is really a conservative figure based on the trends today in Japan. They are not traveling outbound as much as we're used to, not even to Hawaii or Guam. So we're very conservative on it, but we do think we can beat it. We think we can beat 10,000.
Oh, okay.
But definitely, like the chair mentioned, about 50% of those flights, maybe more, are residents from CNMI going to the mainland, coming back, or traveling to Japan. They're using that route because it's convenient.
Okay, but I guess what I'm trying to point out is that the seats are there, and it's just now to market it, right? Okay, so what about so what about Korea? Korea, you're saying here that we're anticipating 80% uh, back recovery, right, from the pre-pandemic numbers. So we're doing okay there, and the airlines are pretty stable now, and no concern there. Okay.
Right, yeah. Just as a matter of fact, Jeju Airlines just launched Busan Saipan July 19, 4 times a week. And initially, that was just a summer schedule to end in August. They just announced an extension to the end of October. So
Okay.
demand is picking up. We just need to
And what's
maintain.
the issue? Asiana is okay now.
Asiana is also they're okay now. Their daily flights, they will when the summer season ends, their schedule reduces to 4 times weekly. But Asiana, as everybody is aware, they're going through financial difficulties themselves, bankruptcy issues, and there is a current merger plan with Korean and Asiana Airlines, and so
Okay.
they have their own internal issues that they need to hammer out.
Yeah, and so, Chairman, just on the point about getting investors first before we somehow I met with some people that just say the other way around. That, for example, we need to have our planning first, then the investors will come. And I say that thinking of, for example, the Garapan area, the Garapan housing, for example. That's a almost 10-hectare area there potentially if you combine all the government area. And right now, planning needs to happen there. Uh, they give those out to whoever want to pay $500 a month, and they all think they're going to be there forever. But if we want to do a first class Garapan tourist site, then we need to plan that, because if we have a master plan for that area, I think you all agree that the investors are going to look at your plan and they're going to say, I want to do here whatever tourism development, and then the investors will come. But right now we don't. So I say that to ask you for your support to start discussing that with SIDA, and see the potential of working with housing corporation and turn that eastern side of Garapan into one Garapan area with the existing western side, and somehow combine the development there, pick what business venture will be good for particular side on that area, and then we bring it to Japan and say, this is our plan. We're gonna offer this site for you, and if it means removing the school, we have to meet with the parents and the community and build them a school somewhere much nicer and more advanced, and the people will accept that. But this takes action today so that we can tomorrow go to Japan and promote it, right? So I'm just saying that it just doesn't take going there and finding an investor. It's an investor that told us that if you guys tell us what you're gonna do and what's your plan in the next 5-10 years, no, Chris, and they'll come in and build something, because they anticipate, they know if they build this will happen next door and a block from there. So I just want to say that who at MVA, who can take the ball and run with the ball on the housing Garapan project. I know that in the past, NMAC just says, oh, put an RFP. I don't think now we can do that. I think now we have to just do a master plan, tell them what we want here in this corner, and go to Japan or Korea and market that. So that's all, Mr. Chairman. I just want to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paul. Just some closing thoughts. I guess I just want to get a better understanding of what MVA thinks or is marketing as the cinema, or what is the cinema's competitive advantage?
Great question. For our traditional markets, we're a short haul destination, the closest beach resort destination to Japan, China, Korea. We are part of the United States. We're safe, family-friendly destination. We're a multi-island destination. Our competitors closest to us can't say that. So those are our strengths. All of that stuff, us being a beach resort destination, which has historically been what has driven the tourism economy here, because we're short haul, we're beach, we're clean, it's a resort, and it's safe, and it's family friendly. And the historical ties between us and, of course, our nearest neighbor, Japan, and then, with China and Korea being markets that came up later in the game, but are still very important markets for us. Those are our biggest draws. And us being, we have 14 islands, but there's really 3 main islands. And that's a big draw for people to come to this, to visit CNMI.
If I may add to that also, I know that Senator Babalta had mentioned, the trails, the adventures, and all this. That's something that we're working on to try to break into. There is a show that what is it, the Adventure Travel. It's the first time that they're actually going to have it in this area of the world, in Asia, in Japan, and so we will be going to that show. The program is also so that we would meet people that basically do these tours, these kind of adventure tours, and try to find out how we can actually break into the market and advertise for our tours here. I think that affects mostly, Rhoda actually, because it, yeah, eco-friendly ventures, and Rhoda is perfect for that. So we're hoping or we are planning on going there, I think in September. In September. Very expensive, but I think that it's something that we have to do in order to have the research done and the information given to us on how we can actually promote our destination to these kinds of adventure tours.
Thank you for that response. But how much of your marketing efforts are geared towards the cultural value and of the cinema?
I want to say, almost all of it is we always market Chamorro Carolinian culture. Recently MVA funded the Marianas Experience culture exhibition at DFS. That's in partnership with DFS, but that's funded by the MVA. So we're slowly doing those kinds of things to promote culture in CNMI. And of course, we sponsor all these other cultural events in Rhoda, Tinian, and Saipan. Flame Trees coming up tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. We're helping with marketing it. We're promoting it heavily in Japan and Korea as an added attraction for these visitors when they come here. And that goes directly towards cultural promotions.
So, Chairman, just a follow up. I want to tell you that I really appreciate going to the airport in Guam. They say tranca for gate. They say, they have all these signage, and it makes you really feel like if you're from another country that these people have culture. But yet, when you come to Saipan, we don't feel that, right? Or in Rhoda. So maybe that's something, for example, that we have to follow that and promote the language, right? So that when they come here, they see that, these people have their own language. No, so I'm just, and Guam really works hard at that. No?
Yeah, and then I wanted to address that because again, there are like offices like Humanities or HBO, and I know that HBO has a grant, and so if MVA can work with them to kind of revitalize these sites that tourists can access, I mean that's another attraction in and of itself. I know that Rhoda CNCA has an art gallery. That's another place that tourists can visit. And if your office can work with the CCA or mayor's office to kind of attract them to those locations to learn more about the history and the culture of the CNMI. Guam has been very good at exposing the Chamorro language through legislation where signage has to also be in Chamorro. And so, those are some of the recommendations I hope that you can take with you and look into and build stronger relationships with these agencies so that we can kind of expose the CNMI more not just as an island beach destination, but also as rich in culture and rich in traditions. And so that's one thing I wanted to point out. Another thing, the 300,000 each to the three districts. Just pulling up that law again, it does require reporting, and so I know that we met briefly, managing director, but I think moving forward, now that the consideration is up for giving MVA those hot tax, I think there needs to be stricter guidelines as to how those monies are spent. I realize that the municipalities are also using it to help, I guess, clean up these sites, but also, those funds can also be used to subsidize the airfare costs. And so it says it says in the statute, any expenditures by the municipalities with the approval of MVA. And so it seems like the ball is in your court now, and that you know, there. I hope that you can utilize those funds in a manner that would also support your initiatives and efforts as how I mean, the way it's been used in the past is just provided to the municipalities and then they use it how they feel would enhance the destination. But if this can be aligned with your vision and your initiatives, then I think that should be further looked at. And this is in reference to Public Law 2017. And I say this because part of your budget proposal, like I've mentioned to you before, simply throws money at these activities that are happening on these islands. But if MVA has a more active role in how those monies can be spent or be geared towards actual advertisement and promotion, then that's something that um, that MVA has more authority over now with those funds going to the municipalities. Additionally, and I know again I've mentioned this before, but just for the record, providing more awareness as to the activities that are happening in the Marianas so that visitors from even Guam alone can know when things are happening and that way they can schedule their travel around those dates. And again, even I don't know, I know that when you Google things, you can kind of update things like Wikipedia. I mean, just working on that alone, if you were to Google Rota now, there's always that connection to Rota Spain. And so, how can we work in trying to kind of have it geared towards Rota Northern Mariana Islands? And so, we may have to circle back and come around again. Again, the earmark is under the um, assumption that we'll realize 175 million in projected revenue. However, this is under the assumption that the tax increases or one particular tax increase will take effect, but it seems like members of the House may have concerns in regards to that. And if the House can't meet that shortfall of 9 million, then we may have to revisit this idea, the earmark, and so when the House introduces those legislations that could address that shortfall, I think for the meantime, the 4.5 is probably all we can provide for now until such time there's a either a supplemental budget or an increase in taxes that will be passed before the budget is passed. And so, before we, in closing, thank you for coming in as well as bringing your team and shedding light on some concerns that the members have.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to take this opportunity to inform you about Rhoda Resort a little bit. Rhoda Resort, actually, today should have been the final hearing date to resolve the uh, the eviction notice. And subsequent to that, we should have been DPL would have been putting out an RFP for whoever is interested in reopening the resort. But I guess there's a slight delay. But my point is that hopefully this year, by this year, we would have a new owner if they put out the RFP immediately. And with that, I think that we can bring that to the airline and say that there's that potential to open up the 18-hole golf course and the hotel, right? It's a beautiful golf course, and we can then promote in the CNMI and abroad for golf trips. So, but with that, if you should have ideas in the RFP, we would appreciate it. We can bring it up to DPL so that in the RFP proposal, we can somehow tie that to airline seats or marketing or what have you, because you guys are the experts. So give us some ideas how uh, to work with DPL so that they can align that, no, the airline and the promotion and for the scope of work, scope of the RFP. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Paul. Sorry, I just thought about that. You mentioned that there's something happening in September.
Yes, it's the adventure.
Adventure World Travel Summit,
And where's that?
Sapporo, Japan, northern Japan.
What dates is that in between?
9/11 to 14.
And is it an expo or
Yeah,
It's like an
it's a
expo.
B2B trade show featuring all these adventure travel suppliers and agents that are marketing these things around the world. Buyers. First time in Asia. It's usually held in North or South America and Europe. First time in Asia, and they've chosen Japan. And it's the first time that we're gonna participate in it. Just because we kind of there are adventure activities here. A lot of people. I mean, there's skydiving, there's scuba diving, there's ATV adventures. Food is an adventure. Culinary adventures, cycling. So we want to kind of market ourselves, sort of tap into that niche market. It's a little bit different. So, and we've never participated in it. So it's good. It came by the request of the MVA members that are involved in this type of business.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. And so, as I was stating before, if we have any concerns in regards to how this budget projection, this revenue projection may be affected, we'll reach out to MVA and we'll go from there. But again, in the meantime, thank you all for coming in today. You are hereby
Thank you.
dismissed. All right. At this time, any announcements? All right. At this time, we'll take a short recess. get back from recess. Prior to recess, we dismissed MVA members. I think at this point, are well. At this point, we may need to recommend the House to take back the concurrent resolution so that they can adjust available resources as well as the ceiling. Again, the projected revenue was under the assumption that the tax bracket increase will take effect and will pass both houses, but they can't project for something that hasn't, or that we don't know whether it will be approved or not. And so um, we're doing right now, aside from the next two budget hearings, will be to wait and see how the House will make changes to the concurrent resolution. Our next budget hearing will be on Rhoda on August 10th and 11th, followed by Tinian the following week. The date and time has yet to be announced, but Rhoda August 10th will be at 1 p.m. at the Mayor's Conference Hall. All right,
Mr. Chairman, this is a question. Why are we sending it back? Why don't we amend it and send it back?
due to the time we have left in order to send it to the governor's office, I think it would be easier for them to readjust the projected sources. That way, when it comes here, and
Yeah,
we
but my
agree,
question is then they will blame us that we did not act. If we just tell them redo it, I mean, why don't we act? And then if they redo it prior to whatever, at least we already have done our job. I'm just
we
thinking out
can't.
loud.
Yeah, thank you for that concern. I think right now there are two ways we can go. We can pass it with 9 million reduced, and then figure out if the House has time to readjust their schedules, or wait until the House introduces the new tax bills and then it passes the Senate and gets signed into law before we act on the concurrent, which would include the projections of these new tax laws. Because if we reduce the budget, the concurrent right now, reduce it by 9 million, the House will need again more time to readjust the allocations to figure out where to get that 9 million from. That's one way. The other way is we pass the tax bills before acting on the concurrent resolution, get the governor to sign it into law, and then they can use the revenue that is projected from from those tax increases to uh, keep the current projections with the 9 million included. And we only have until the governor by law should have 20 days to act on this bill. So we need to get it out by September 10. But right now we're waiting on the House to see how what they would do with the tax bill, and if the members of the Senate would agree to the tax bill. Otherwise, if members agree that we reduce it by 9 million, then we're good to go. If not, then we shall wait for those tax bills. Recognize.
Mr. Chairman, if we reduce it and send it back to the House, I think would have done our job. And under the present conditions, if we pass it, send it back to them, and they will pass a tax bill, then at that point we can then pass the tax bill if that's our decision. But we might have to amend it, send it back. So it's going to be not a quick process. But assuming that the House communicates with their counterpart in the Senate, and we agree to pass the tax bill, then they can always your two committees can always sign a conference committee report. I mean, the House can immediately reject it, and then based on what happens, after our action of amending it, you can always come in a conference committee report. Because then the House will reject it, and then by that time maybe the bill is here, we pass that, then the conference committee can have several weeks. I don't know, our legal counsel, how many?
Right. And but the conference committee would also again delay the passage of the budget because we haven't agreed on that projected revenue.
Well, it will be pretty much the same group working on the budget. So
Because if we approve the concurrent resolution, and council, correct me if I'm wrong, if we approve the resolution at a decrease of 9 million, then any tax bill that comes after that, we would have to wait till we realize those projections, council, and then pass a supplemental when we collect those funds. Or if we act currently with the 9 million reduction, and then the tax bill comes later after the budget is signed,
Oh, you
or
mean
even
supplemental appropriation?
supplemental appropriate. So we would operate at a lot.
Oh no, what I'm recommending is that hopefully before the actual budget is passed, that if a tax bill agreed upon will be passed prior to that, so so that then we can incorporate in the budget bill. But of course, if it's not passed prior to the budget, it will have to be under supplemental. But I'm just saying, for purposes of moving the House concurrent resolution, send it back to them with 9 million less, and then they'll have to speed up the process of the tax bill, and by then, before the actual passage of the budget, we can actually just do another House concurrent. Can we do another House concurrent before or do you get one chance at it only, or
You can
if-
amend the House
if-
concurrent.
you can always amend the House concurrent? So we can always just send both bills up to the Senate and then pass it. But to just leave it there and say they're going to work on it, I think that if they do not act, we will get blamed, and that it's sitting at the Senate, and the Senate hasn't act on it. That's my only concern. But
Passed the concurrent already?
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, it's
in,
before
in our
us.
committee.
so if we don't act on it, and assuming they're going to work on the budget bill, I mean the tax bill, and if they don't, then it
Council,
will be
can we
sitting.
even send back the concurrent without amending it?
That's why I was asking Dave, is the House concurrent with hearing the
Mhm,
Senate, yes, and the chair just verified it with the committee. I don't think the House can just take back, especially to take back the House concurrent.
Yeah,
Then the committee would have to act on it.
yeah.
The bill's not only in the Senate, it's with the.
So we would have to amend
The
the,
only way to get the House concurrent out is either to.
amend it?
pass
Or,
amend
oh,
it
I see,
or-
yeah. But we
or-
can't just say, here, House, take your, so we have to amend it. Right?
or we-
Or we pass it as is. But
No, we can't pass it as is right now.
of course, because of the 9 million that was embedded in there. So the only option we have is to amend it.
Okay. So
And then
you
send
have
it
to
back.
think that if we're going to consider this earmarks that are currently suspended or currently brought back,
Yeah.
if we're going to continue that suspension, because we're not going to be able to meet that 9 million
Did
projection.
you email us the concurrent with the,
Email? No, it should be on the server.
okay.
Okay,
take it.
so we'll continue the discussion, and then whatever the majority of the members decide, we can
Sure.
schedule a committee meeting to address that. All right, any other announcements?
No.
If none, motion for adjournment.
So moved,
Second.
Chairman.
All right, motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Meeting is hereby adjourned at 3:52 p.m.